is it all nominal? So that's the other thing, are just young people, especially, just desperately reaching out for something new in their life, reaching out for something traditional, but they're not actually encountering God. It's not a sort of serious faith.
Well, everything in our data set would suggest that it is a real and vibrant and genuine faith that they're expressing to us. So young adults throughout our survey are really engaged with the Bible. They're reading it regularly. They want to know it better. They're talking about it. They've got a high belief in God. They think Christianity is a good thing. So it really doesn't look like they're just there for community, although that's there as well, and that's important. Let's not forget that. It's not that it's just a belonging without believing. They are believing while belonging. But there is a bigger sort of theme to note here, which is what we would call nominal or cultural Christianity across our data sets does seem to be in decline. So if you are an older adult, you are more likely to say that you are Christian without practice than if you are a younger person. So in our survey, if you are a younger person who describes yourself as a Christian, it is more likely to mean something. And this is something we've been observing in other data sets like the census, that young people are less likely to say they're Christian. But what it means is that being Christian now means something. And this is part of this active and vibrant church that we can build on going forward into the next decades.
So census Christianity, if you like, ticking a box, is declining, but serious Christianity, people really wanting something in their life, God, ultimately wanting hope. And I resonate with that because you're all over the statistics, and that is been so powerful. And behind those statistics, really, we're talking about stories, aren't we? Real people whose lives maybe actually are quite broken and pain. And I was thinking of stories I was hearing over the summer of one young lady talking about having a dream in which she felt God, who she didn't really believe in any active way until this moment. God told her to go to speak to someone who she didn't realize was a churchgoer about going to church with her, and she did. So the dreams thing seems to be coming through in a way that some of us have thought that's the sort of thing that happens in other parts of the world, and actually in our own backyard that's happening. And then I think another young man whose story really caught my heart, and I'm now connected with him, on a journey with him. But he came to a Christian event I was speaking at, the first event he'd ever been to, and when he told me his story, he'd reached a point of ending his life. That's where he was at. He was sat on top of a quarry about to jump off, and again God spoke to him, and he heard a voice saying, "This is not how your story ends." So with that hope, he walked down from the quarry, bought a Bible in W.H. Smith's, he told me, and just started reading the Bible. And I guess what I'm getting at here is, that's hardly nominal Christianity. That is the most serious kind of Christianity, where it's life or death, and it's hope instead of despair. Now, so I'm just emphasizing what I think I'm hearing. I think that's why the word revival, even if it's a subtle or quiet revival, is actually important, because God is doing something. I don't think it's just a social trend or a cultural pattern. I sense God is at work. Is that something you've picked up in what you've been hearing as well?
Yeah, and of course it's both and, right? Like God can work through social situations. But one thing that I think's come out really clearly for me as I've been hearing stories is there's almost like this spontaneity of the exploration sometimes. So you've mentioned dreams. I've heard that come up a lot, which is just fascinating. And as you say, kind of unexpected and unusual, but it's sort of pointing towards an openness, or people might be dreaming that they should go to church. I met a young guy who in some ways is kind of a quiet revival archetype, who had been doing work experience at his local primary school, and they'd been praying in assembly, and it just stirred something in him. He's not from a Christian background even. And he thought, I'd like to look into this more. And he found a church, and now he's very deep in his faith. But the other thing that has come up quite a bit is this idea of online discipleship. So almost like the algorithm serving you up interesting content, and you are interested, so it gives you more. And then you might start listening to a podcaster who's got interesting people on. And then you find out that people who are interested in these ideas go to church. And I've heard from a few church leaders about people turning up kind of half-formed. But the common thing in both of those, like the spontaneous and the digital, if you like, is people just turning up. And I hear that over and over again. And one of the things I'm hoping we're going to unpack in this series is this moment is not a return right, to what the church was 40 years ago. This is something new, and we've got to understand the new landscape, including how people are coming in, because that affects how then we respond. But there are other things at play as well, and churches and church leaders need to be prepared for those.